Lightning like Steve McQueen. I'm in the fast lane when the light turns green. And I built tough, I ain't nothing but grit. Cause I made rugged blood, sweat, and spit. Yeah, like a horse I fly. Better push yourself in for a bumpy ride. I like to play hard, but I work harder. And I weather the storm cause I'm built stronger.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen? We are back. We are live. It is the Freight Coach Morning Show, the top morning show in transportation, coming to you guys every single weekday, 8:30 a.m. Pacific, 10:30 Central, to break down some industry headlines, and most importantly, provide some actual insight into what you can do with all of this information. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome. This is the real side of freight, ladies and gentlemen. And I say that before every single show. And what I mean by that is I only speak to transportation professionals on this show, as well as my twice a week long form podcast, because I want to talk to the right individuals who have done what you're looking to do or who are currently doing what you're trying to achieve, so you can take that, apply it, utilize it, and see a meaningful difference in your business and your life. Happy Monday, Corey Buchan, Tracy St. Clair. Good morning to you over on YouTube. Sorry, guys. I am clearly running a little bit behind here this morning. As you guys know, I'm trying to build my stuff up, right? I'm out here making things happen with you guys. And I got a little tied up this morning. I had some meetings and, I'm just out here trying to make my dreams come true, just like each and every one of you. And I do apologize for starting a couple of minutes, about like 10 minutes late here this morning. And we're going to jump right into things. John Radvansky, good Monday morning on YouTube. Flo, what is up? Good morning to you over on LinkedIn. I appreciate that, Flo. Thanks for understanding. But we're going to jump right in here to some articles. And as always, you guys, there's going to be a new podcast episode dropping tomorrow as well. I got a guest coming on this show tomorrow and possibly another one here this week. It's going to be an action-packed week. And then the Freight Coach Roadshow is going to be in full effect next week. I'm going to be out doing some site visits with some current customers and some prospects on the East Coast. So it's going to be busy here, but that's what I signed up for when I started this whole dream about 4 years ago. But let's get right into some articles here. So this first article, and as always, you guys, the links to these articles that I put up will be up on the Freight Coach YouTube channel, as well as the Coffee with the Freight Coach audio only replay, which is available on iTunes and Spotify almost immediately after the show. First article that we got here is, I'm sorry, guys, we just had a truck deliver. Perfect. Let's go. I saw a report that there was another company that got hacked, or there's like a cyber attack on a specific company. And that's where this first article comes from. And again, I want to be abundantly clear. My friends over at the NMFTA have been spearheading the cybersecurity issue in our industry for years, you guys. And I hate seeing it come into like mainstream news, but the NMFTA deserves all the credit for this, because they literally have a dedicated conference to this. I've been at that for a couple of years and I've learned a lot out there, you guys. So I saw that there was one company that had it, but the first article, Zena, what is up? Happy Monday to you as well. First article is from ttnews.com. New SEC rules prompt closer look at cybersecurity. Trucking business will want to take a closer look at the cybersecurity in 2024 now that tough new disclosure rules from the Securities and Exchange Commission have gone live. Designed for public companies, the SEC crackdown on cybersecurity also has teeth for many private companies that do business with public firms. The reason: the computer networks of private companies, including those of transportation providers, are often linked with those of their public company customers, according to, Metric Stream, an IT advisory firm specializing in cyber risk management and compliance. That's a big problem, given that hackers are well aware that if they can penetrate the loosely guarded computer networks of a smaller private company, then they can use that vulnerability to break into the computer systems of a much larger provider. For truckers, the reality is especially timely, given that transportation companies are no stranger to hacker break-ins. LTL company Estes was hit by a cyber attack in October, and then the threat is large and increasing quickly. said Wade Anderson, the chief information officer and chief technology officer at Bay and Bay Transportation out of Minnesota. The data does speak for itself. The number of ransomware incidents and average payouts nearly doubled from 2022 to 2023. And we all know the big threat, what the big threat is. But really what's concerning to me is the rate at which is increasing in the scope of scale. And then, like that's what the crazy thing to me is because like I remember them talking about it. And I actually, when Antoine of the NMFTA was on about a month ago now at this point, like it is that effect where they just, the ransomware and the phishing emails and everything that they send out is they're looking for the, again, like I mean, I get stuff that just looks shady all the time, right? Like general rule of thumb, just don't click on it, right? Like if you see it, and especially, and I know that some of these are getting very, 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 very good, we'll call it, because I don't, but from my, because like they're evolving, they're getting better and better, they're getting more efficient and stuff like that. And those emails, they're looking for the person who's just not paying attention, and you're gonna click on a link. And I just feel like take your time. Like anytime you open up an email, slow it down. Don't just click on the link and shit like that. Take your time. And then Jane with Carrier's Edge, she may or may not be coming on the show here soon. Hackers continue to evolve their tactics and try new approaches almost weekly. Whether it's probing for unpatched security holes, variations on phishing and ransomware attempts, the threat is ongoing and persistent. One of the major impacts businesses will see is that the cybersecurity plans of any public company, including their security arrangements with private trunking companies, are now public. That means anyone interested in closely scrutinizing the cybersecurity plan of any public company, including investors and everyday citizens, can now pore over that company's official report to their SEC, to their heart's content, excuse me. And then whether a company loses a factory in a fire or millions of files into cybersecurity interest, it may be material to investors. Currently, many public companies provide cybersecurity disclosures to investors, and I think companies and investors alike, however, would benefit if this disclosure were made in a more consistent and comparable decision useful way. And then it goes on to say that these regulations will serve as an organized platform to learn from mistakes and ultimately prevent history from repeating itself, said Draga Mahone, the executive vice president and chief information officer at Warner Enterprises. The value of sharing learnings cannot be understated as it enables the prevention of future missteps. I think that is always, from my perspective, putting that information out there for others to learn from. And again, what anybody else does with that is their perspective, right? At the end of the day, if they're going to apply it or learn from it, that's their choice. But I truly think at the end of the day, though, like with a lot of this information, again, this is why the NMFTA is so vital for the industry and putting on the cybersecurity conferences. It's learning from this. You guys, this is a really long article because, again, like one of these things, you got to think, you guys, one of these attacks could cripple your organization. And if you don't train people, if you don't have an SOP in place, if you don't have a plan for people to follow, that's the biggest thing. We need plans for people to follow. And I truly think that everybody needs to look into cyber more and more right now. Don't wait. The NMFTA is a bunch of free tools out there. And again, I'm not sponsored by them, but they're very, very close friends of mine. And they put a lot of effort into educating the industry on this, you guys. And they have a bunch of stuff on there. And then if you guys want to hear more, the episode with Antoine was about a month ago or so, or maybe late January. So check that out, you guys, where they talk on that. That was on from ttnews.com. New SEC rules prompt closer look at cyber security. Steve Hunt says they need only one person in your organization to mess up to get in. And that's exactly it, you guys, is it just takes one person and then they're in, and then your system's compromised, and then it could shut your business down. And I think that's the most brutal part about it is it just takes one. And I think everybody understands mistakes happen, but like train your staff, work with your staff on this, you guys. All right. Next article, freightwaves.com. Are drayage truckers getting off easy under new FMC's new billing rule? Federal regulators have relieved drayage truckers from late fee bills associated with picking up and returning cargo containers, while inadvertently and unfairly shifting the burden onto shippers, a major shipper group contends. The FMC, or the Federal Maritime Commission's rules on demurrage and detention issued last week, imposed new billing standards on ocean carriers and terminal operators in an effort to crack down on abusive container fees. But a simplified billing provision in the rule means drayage truck drivers can no longer be billed for demurrage and detention on cargo contracted between ocean carriers and their shippers, even if the truckers might have been responsible for the delay in picking up or returning the container to the port. That burden, unless explicitly spelled out otherwise in an agreement, now seems to fall squarely on the shipper, says the National Institute of Transportation League, the NITL, which whose members could wind up having to pay more in the administration costs to manage that process. And I go say, because truckers are not usually part of the ocean transportation contract, it really seemed that the FMC wanted to carve the truckers out of the billing process. And the best way to do that with this billing provision is with that rule, said the NITL General Counsel, Karen Booth. But if truckers know they're not going to pay demurrage and detention invoices unless contractually obligated to do so with the shipper, the rule could reduce their incentive to do everything in their power to get the container out of the port and return it in a timely way. That's where our members have concerns. They're going to have to pay even when they're not at fault for delays in picking up or returning containers, and we'll have the contractual relationships that will allow them to get reimbursed. That's the practical implication of this rule. Shippers are going to have to look at their contracts carefully with the ocean carriers and truckers. I think one thing to point out here, drivers don't make money by holding on to empty containers and just sitting there, right? Especially drayage drivers. They get paid by more and more work that they put in. I don't know of anybody out there. And again, I can't speak for drayage drivers because I'm not a drayage driver. I only speak as somebody who's incentivized to make more money off of the more work that I complete. I don't think that the problem is going to lie with the drayage drivers at all with this no rule. I do not think that way. I think that drivers, if anything, are going to make more and more turns, because I think what this rule will do is this will, like, I think something like this is going to improve the way that the ports work. I think that this is, if anything, this is going to make it more efficient, because and again, I'm not saying that the shippers need to be held responsible for this, but if they know that they're going to have fees associated with any delays of picking up the containers and everything else, I think this forces some of these ports to maybe work faster, because, again, obviously I'm not the most pro-union individual out there. Anybody who watches this show, this isn't going to come as a shock, but some of these workers are not necessarily incentivized to move more, to load faster or unload faster at the ports, right? These containers, these dock workers, the ship workers, and everything else. They're not incentivized. Like, they're paid the same if they unload or if they move one container in a day or 50, right? But these drayage drivers, they're compensated on each load. So you're telling me that they wouldn't want to move more and more containers and then have these containers off their chassis in a faster manner? I would say, if anything, this is going to force the ports to improve. And the beauty of what these last couple of years have exposed is people will just shift to a different port. So again, say the port of LA and Long Beach are taking a long time, they'll just move their shit to Houston, or they'll move it to Jacksonville or Savannah or something like that. So I think, if anything, this will work to speed up the way that the ports operate. I truly think that way, because again, if And when I'm talking about like, again, like the people who are actually loading and offloading the containers at the ports, they're not incentivized. They get paid the same if they put one container on a chassis in a day or 100. All right. And then in the same thing, they're compensated the exact same. These drivers are compensated by how many turns they can make in a day. So I would say that by doing this, you're going to improve the way that these ports work, because these shippers will just look at it of, hey, if I bring my containers and have them imported through the port of LA, I get fined exponentially higher than if I do at the port of Houston. I believe this is called a free market. I believe this is where the free market thrives. And then if the harder you work, the more compensated you are. I mean, people out there utilize like this is how they judge um this is how they judge who they work with. I mean, as a broker, as a trucking company, if you're not, all of those accessorial fees that people are charging, this all gets tied into whether you're going to work with a customer or not. So I think if customers need to look at it this way, if there are more port, I would spread it out. I would say, hey, I'm going to start importing, maybe I'll go to the port of Oakland and the port of LA or the port of Seattle or whatever that looks like. And I'll see who processes my containers faster. Who doesn't have all these additional accessorial fees, all these detention times, and all that stuff? And then I would just shift my business to another port because it's all gamified at that point. I think that this can clean things up. I really do. I truly do. I think that this is going to be a good thing for the industry. I really do. I think that, at the end of the day, if you're not going to do your job, you're not going to get the revenue that's going to come in, because all of these people bid on what ports that they're going to import and export their freight from. So I think that this, if anything, by putting these fees and taking them off the driver, because again, I think that it's a very wrong assessment to think that any driver wants to hold on to a container for any longer than they have to. Uh, that's just my stance on this. But yeah, you guys, it was a shortened show today because again, I got a business to run, you guys, and I'm trying my best. All right, I'm trying my best. We started a little bit late today, but we'll be back tomorrow. I got to get back into things, you guys. I got a guest coming on tomorrow, and we'll have another guest on here later on this week as well. As always, you guys, if you guys got value in what you heard, subscribe to the show, share it out there. That one on Friday with Vitaly, you guys, the shipper, that one's kind of blown up. So share that one if you guys need help with business development and sales, you guys, because that's how we grow. But most importantly, that's how we help more people, is because if you saw value, your network's going to see value as well. I appreciate you guys. I love you guys, and we'll be talking to you soon.